Unlikely heroes. The warning klaxons blared through the cramped corridors of Zephyr 6, jolting Zack Ryder from his fitful sleep. He tumbled out of his bunk, his heart pounding as the voice of the station's AI crackled over the intercom. Alert! Unknown vessels have emerged from hyperspace and are approaching the station. All personnel report to emergency stations. Zack cursed under his breath as he pulled on his coveralls, his mind already racing. As the station's lead mechanic, he knew every inch of Zephyr 6 like the back of his grease-stained hand. But an attack? That was something new. He sprinted down the corridor, dodging panicked crewmates as he made his way to the command center. As he burst through the doors, he found Captain Lena Novak hunched over the central display, her face drawn and pale. "What's going on, Captain?" Zack asked, trying to catch his breath. Lena looked up, her eyes haunted. "It's the Zorgans. They came out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't even pick them up until they were right on top of us." Zack's stomach dropped. The Zorgans were notorious across the galaxy for their aggression and their advanced technology. If they were here, it could only mean one thing. "They're here to wipe us out," he said softly. Lena nodded grimly. "We're outmatched, Zack. Our weapons are no match for their ships. But we have to do something. We can't just let them slaughter us." Zack's mind was already whirring, pieces of a desperate plan falling into place. "We might not have weapons, Captain, but we've got something else. We've got a station full of mining equipment, industrial lasers, and a whole lot of people who know how to improvise." Lena's eyes widened as she caught on to his meaning. "You want to fight them? With mining equipment?" Zack grinned, a manic light in his eyes. "They sent an invasion force. We'll send a mechanic with nothing to lose." Over the next hour, Zack rallied a ragtag team of engineers, miners, and technicians. They worked feverishly, modifying mining lasers into makeshift weapons, repurposing exoskeletons into combat armor, and jury-rigging the station's systems for maximum defensive capability. As the Zorgan ships closed in, Zack and his team took their positions, armed with an arsenal that would have made any military commander laugh. But they had something the Zorgans didn't: a desperate, unshakable will to survive. The first Zorgan assault craft latched onto the station's hull like a monstrous tick, disgorging heavily armed warriors into the corridors. But as they stalked through the dimly lit passages, they were met not with screams and cowering civilians, but with barricades, booby traps, and a hail of superheated plasma from modified mining lasers. Zack led the charge, wielding a plasma cutter like a sword, his face lit by the eerie glow of the energy beams. His team fought with a ferocity born of desperation, turning the station's corridors into a nightmarish labyrinth for the invaders. But even as they fought, Zack knew it was only a matter of time. The Zorgans kept coming, wave after wave, their superior numbers and technology inexorably pushing the humans back. Corridor by corridor, level by level, Zephyr 6 was falling. As Zack and the survivors fell back to the command center, the last bastion of resistance, he couldn't help but feel a grim sense of pride. They had fought with everything they had, using every scrap of ingenuity and resourcefulness they could muster. If this was to be humanity's end, at least they would go down swinging. But as the Zorgans battered at the command center's sealed doors, Zack's eyes fell on the central display, still showing the mass of enemy ships surrounding the station. And in that moment, a last desperate idea clicked into place. He turned to Lena, a wild, reckless grin spreading across his face. "Captain, I think I know how we can turn the tide. But it's going to take every ounce of human ingenuity and guts we've got left." Lena met his gaze, her eyes blazing with the same defiant fire. "Then what are we waiting for? Let's show these bastards what happens when you corner humanity." And with that, they set to work on a plan as audacious as it was desperate. A plan that just might save them all, or doom them to a glorious, unforgettable end. Turning the tide. The command center shuddered as another explosion rocked the station. The Zorgans were relentless, pounding at the reinforced doors with a barrage of energy blasts. Inside, Zack and his team worked feverishly, their faces lit by the ethereal glow of holographic displays. "Okay, listen up," Zack said, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We've got one shot at this. We need to find a way to disrupt their weapon systems." Lena frowned, her eyes scanning the readouts. "But how? Their technology is so advanced. We don't have anything that can match it." Zack's grin was fierce. "We don't need to match it. We just need to throw a wrench in the works." He pointed to a schematic of the Zorgon ships. "See these emitters? They're what power their main weapons. If we can find a way to interfere with the energy flow, it could cause a feedback loop, overloading their systems." Lena finished, her eyes widening. "Zack, that's brilliant. But how do we do it?" Zack turned to his team, his gaze falling on a grizzled miner named Gus. "Gus, those sonic drills we use for asteroid mining, how powerful are they?" Gus scratched his beard, thinking. "Pretty damn powerful. They can shatter a kilometer-wide asteroid in minutes." Zack nodded, the pieces falling into place. "If we can modify them to emit a focused pulse at the right frequency, it just might be enough to disrupt the Zorgon's weapons." The team set to work, tearing apart the sonic drills and reassembling them into something new, something dangerous. It was a desperate gamble, but they were out of options. As the last drill was modified, Zack turned to Lena. "We need to get these to the exterior of the station. Think your pilots can handle it?" Lena smiled grimly. "They'll get it done, even if they have to fly through hell to do it." The plan was set in motion. As Zack and his team mounted the modified drills onto a squadron of small, agile ships, the Zorgons broke through the command center doors. The room descended into chaos, energy beams crisscrossing the air as the humans fought a desperate rearguard action. "Go!" Lena shouted over the din of battle. "We'll hold them off as long as we can." Zack hesitated for a split second, torn between the mission and his comrades. But he knew what had to be done. With a final nod to Lena, he sprinted for the hangar bay, his team close on his heels. They burst into the hangar to find the pilots already in their ships, engines roaring to life. Zack leaped into the lead craft, his fingers flying over the controls. "All right, everyone," he said over the comm, his voice steady. "Let's give these bastards a wake-up call they'll never forget." The ships rocketed out of the hangar, weaving through a maelstrom of enemy fire. Zack gritted his teeth as he pushed his craft to the limit, dodging and juking with reflexes he didn't know he had. As they neared the Zorgon fleet, Zack gave the signal. The modified drills hummed to life, emitting a piercing, resonant pulse that cut through the void of space. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Zorgon ships began to falter, their weapons systems flickering and dying. A cheer went up over the comm as the human ships pressed their advantage, strafing the crippled Zorgon vessels with a barrage of mining lasers and repurposed explosives. But even as they struck back, Zack knew this was only the beginning. They had bought themselves a reprieve, nothing more. The Zorgons would regroup, adapt. If humanity was to have any chance of survival, they needed to take the fight to the enemy. Zack's eyes fell on the massive shape of the Zorgon mothership, looming in the distance like a malevolent star. And in that moment, he knew what had to be done. He keyed the comm, his voice filled with a grim determination. "All right, everyone. We've got their attention. Now let's show them what happens when you piss off a bunch of humans with nothing left to lose." Into the breach. The Zorgon mothership loomed before them, a monstrous construct of alien metal and pulsing energy. Zack felt a shiver run down his spine as he stared at the behemoth, a sense of awe mingled with dread. "That's one big ugly bastard," Gus muttered over the comm, voicing what they were all thinking. Zack nodded, his jaw set. "And that's where we're headed, right into the belly of the beast." The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. They would use the chaos of the ongoing battle to slip a small team onto the mothership, with the goal of disabling it from the inside. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance they had. As the infiltration team prepared in the hangar bay, Lena pulled Zack aside, her face etched with concern. "Zack, are you sure about this? It's a hell of a risk." Zack met her gaze, his eyes burning with determination. "It's the only way, Lena. If we can take out that mothership, it'll cripple their entire fleet. It's worth the risk." Lena nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Then I'm coming with you." Zack started to protest, but Lena cut him off. "Don't even think about telling me to stay behind. This is my station, my people. I'm not going to sit back and watch while you risk your life." Zack smiled despite himself, a surge of affection and respect welling up inside him. "All right, Captain. Let's do this together." The infiltration team boarded a small, stealthy ship, specially retrofitted for the mission. As they approached the mothership, darting between the massive vessel and the ongoing space battle, Zack couldn't help but marvel at the sheer scale of the Zorgan craft. "How the hell are we supposed to find the right spot to board this thing?" he muttered, scanning the alien hull for any sign of an entry point. Beside him, Mira, the station's chief science officer, tapped at her console. "I'm picking up an anomalous energy signature near the ship's aft section. Could be a maintenance hatch or a sensor blind spot." Zack grinned. "Mira, you're a genius. Take us in, nice and easy." The ship slid silently towards the mothership, hugging the hull to avoid detection. As they neared the location of the energy signature, Zack spotted it, a small, unassuming hatch barely visible against the alien metal. "There," he said, pointing. "That's our way in." The team donned their spacesuits and cycled through the airlock, magnetic boots clanking against the hull as they made their way to the hatch. Zack's heart pounded in his ears as he worked to bypass the alien locking mechanism, every second feeling like an eternity. Finally, with a hiss of released pressure, the hatch slid open. The team exchanged glances, steeling themselves for what lay ahead. Then, one by one, they stepped through the breach and into the unknown. Inside, the mothership was a labyrinth of twisted corridors and pulsing conduits, the air thick with the hum of alien machinery. Zack took point, his modified plasma cutter at the ready, every sense on high alert. As they made their way deeper into the ship, navigating by the schematics Mira had managed to piece together, they encountered their first real obstacle, a squad of Zorgan warriors, their chitinous armor gleaming in the dim light. The fight was brief but brutal, energy beams and plasma blasts scorching the walls. In the end, the humans stood victorious, but not unscathed. Gus clutched at a smoking wound in his side, his face pale but determined. "I'm fine," he growled, waving off Lena's concern. "We need to keep moving." Zack nodded grimly, knowing every second counted. They pushed deeper into the ship, following the pulsing conduits towards the vessel's central power core. But as they neared their target, a new challenge reared its head. The corridors began to shift and reconfigure, the ship's very structure changing around them like a living thing. "It's the ship's eye," Mira shouted over the groaning of metal. "It's trying to stop us." Zack gritted his teeth, his mind racing. They were so close, the power core just ahead. But with the ship itself against them, their chances of reaching it were dwindling by the second. And then, in a moment of desperate inspiration, it hit him. He turned to his team, a wild, reckless plan taking shape in his mind. "Listen up," he shouted, his voice echoing through the shifting corridors. "I've got an idea, but it's going to take every ounce of human ingenuity and guts we've got. And even then, it might not work." The team exchanged glances, a flicker of hope mingled with grim determination passing between them. "We're with you, Zack," Lena said, speaking for all of them. "Let's hear this crazy plan of yours, and then let's show these Zorgan bastards what humanity is made of." And with that, they huddled together as Zack laid out his audacious gambit, a last, desperate roll of the dice in the face of impossible odds. It was crazy, it was reckless, but it just might work. The Mechanic's Gambit. Zack's plan was as audacious as it was risky. They would split into two teams, one to distract the Zorgan forces and the ship's eye, the other to make a desperate run for the power core. "Mira, you take Gus and Lena," Zack said, his voice tight with tension. "Create as much chaos as you can. Keep them focused on you." Mira nodded, her face set with determination. "We'll give them a hell of a show. But Zack, what about you?" Zack grinned, a fierce, reckless light in his eyes. "I'm going for the power core. It's time to put my mechanical skills to the test." Lena stepped forward, her hand on Zack's arm. "Zack, that's suicide. You can't do this alone." Zack met her gaze, his expression softening for a moment. "I have to, Lena. It's the only way. If I can get to the core and rig it to blow, it'll take out the whole damned ship." Lena looked like she wanted to argue, but the resolve in Zack's eyes stopped her. Instead, she pulled him into a fierce hug. "You come back to us, you hear me? That's an order." Zack returned the hug, his voice rough with emotion. "Yes, Mom." With a final nod, the teams split up, each heading in opposite directions. Mira led her group down a twisting corridor, her modified mining laser at the ready. As if on cue, a squad of Zorgan warriors emerged from a side passage, their energy weapons blazing. Mira and her team responded in kind, the narrow corridor erupting into a chaos of crisscrossing beams and exploding conduits. Meanwhile, Zack crept through the ship's bowels, every sense on high alert. He moved like a shadow, dodging patrols and skirting security systems with a skill born of desperation. Finally, he reached his goal, the central power core, a massive sphere of pulsing energy suspended in a cavernous chamber. Zack's heart raced as he approached the core, his mind already whirring with calculations and schematics. But as he neared the core's control panel, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. "Did you really think it would be so easy, human?" Zack spun, his plasma cutter at the ready. Before him stood a towering Zorgan, its chitinous armor adorned with glowing sigils of rank. "I am Commander Zaxxer," the alien intoned, its voice dripping with disdain. "And you, human, have meddled in affairs beyond your comprehension for the last time." Zack's grip tightened on his weapon, his mind racing. He was so close, the power core within reach. But with the commander standing between him and his goal, his chances of success had just plummeted. "Why are you doing this?" Zack asked, playing for time. "Why attack us? We've done nothing to you." Zaxxer let out a rumbling laugh. "You humans are like vermin, spreading across the galaxy, tainting all you touch. We are the cure, the cleansing fire that will purge your kind from existence." Zack's jaw clenched, anger mingling with desperation. "You underestimate us. Humanity won't go down without a fight." "Fight all you want," Zaxxer sneered. "In the end, you will fall like all the others before you." With a roar, the commander charged, its energy blade flashing. Zack met the charge head-on, plasma cutter blazing. The battle was fierce, a whirlwind of slashing blades and searing plasma. Zack fought with every ounce of skill and determination he possessed, but Zaxxer was relentless, driving him back with sheer strength and brutality. In a last, desperate gamble, Zack feinted left, then dove right, rolling past Zaxxer and coming up right in front of the power core's control panel. His fingers flew over the alien interface, his mechanical intuition guiding him even as Zaxxer bore down on him, energy blade raised for a killing blow. With a final triumphant keystroke, Zack slammed his fist down on the activation button. The power core hummed, then began to pulse erratically, building towards a cataclysmic overload. Zaxxer's eyes widened in horrified realization. "What have you done, human?" Zack grinned fiercely, even as warning klaxons began to blare. "I told you, humanity won't go down without a fight. And if we're going down, we're taking you with us." And with that, the power core exploded in a blinding flash of light and energy, the shockwave rippling out through the ship like the wrath of an angry god. Zack was thrown back, his world dissolving into pain and chaos. His last thought, as darkness claimed him, was of his team, his friends. He had done his part. Now it was up to them to finish the fight, to show the Zorgans and the whole damn galaxy what humanity was made of. Unbreakable resolve. Mira, Lena, and Gus fought their way through the chaos of the dying Zorgan mothership, explosions rocking the vessel as its systems went critical. The ship's eye, crippled by the power core's destruction, could no longer adapt and reconfigure the corridors, but the Zorgan warriors fought on with desperate ferocity. "We need to get to the escape pods," Lena shouted over the din of battle. "The ship's going to blow any minute." Mira nodded grimly, her mining laser making short work of another Zorgan squad. "What about Zack? We can't leave him behind." "He knew the risks," Gus said, his voice heavy with emotion. "He sacrificed himself so we could have a chance. We can't let that be in vain." Lena closed her eyes for a moment, grief and determination pouring on her face. "Gus is right. Zack gave us this chance. We have to take it." With heavy hearts, they fought their way to the escape pod bay, each step a battle against the ship's failing gravity and the relentless Zorgan pursuers. As they neared the pods, a massive explosion tore through the ship, sending them sprawling. Mira looked up, her eyes widening in horror. The escape pods were in ruins, torn apart by the blast. "No," she whispered, despair threatening to overwhelm her. "We were so close." But Lena was already on her feet, her eyes blazing with determination. "We're not dead yet," she said fiercely. "There's got to be another way off this ship." Gus looked around, his brow furrowed in thought. Then his eyes landed on a small battered craft nestled in the corner of the bay. "There," he said, pointing. "A Zorgan shuttle. It's our only chance." They raced to the shuttle, Mira and Lena laying down covering fire as Gus wrenched open the hatch with his bare hands. They piled in, Gus throwing himself into the pilot's seat. "Do you even know how to fly this thing?" Mira asked, strapping herself in. Gus grinned fiercely. "I'm a miner, not a pilot. But I've watched Zack fly enough to know the basics. Hold on to your butts." The shuttle rocketed out of the hangar bay, weaving through a maelstrom of debris and explosions. Behind them, the Zorgan mothership shuddered and convulsed, its structure breaking apart as the chain reaction spread. And then, with a blinding flash of light, the mothership exploded, the shockwaves slamming into the shuttle like the fist of an angry god. Gus fought with the controls, every muscle straining as he tried to keep the craft steady. For a moment, it seemed like they wouldn't make it, the shuttle shaking itself apart around them. But then, miraculously, they were through, the debris field falling away behind them as they shot towards the safety of Zephyr 6. As they docked with the station, a cheer went up from the survivors, the sound echoing through the battered corridors. They had done it. Against all odds, they had struck a blow against the Zorgan invasion, crippling their fleet and buying humanity a fighting chance. But even as they celebrated, Lena, Mira, and Gus couldn't help but feel the weight of their loss. Zack, the unlikely hero, the mechanic with nothing to lose, had given his life to make their victory possible. In the days that followed, as the remnants of the Zorgan fleet fled, and the galaxy reeled from the news of humanity's defiant stand, Zack's story spread like wildfire. He became a legend, a symbol of humanity's unbreakable spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. And on Zephyr 6, a small, makeshift memorial was erected in the station's heart, a simple plaque bearing the words, "In memory of Zack Ryder. Mechanic, hero, friend. He showed us what we're made of." Lena, Mira, and Gus stood before the memorial, their eyes glistening with unshed tears. They had lost so much, but they had also gained something invaluable. The knowledge that even in the darkest of times, humanity would never stop fighting. And somewhere out there, among the stars, they knew Zack was watching over them, a grin on his grease-stained face, pride in his heart. For he had shown the galaxy the true power of human resilience, the unbreakable resolve of a species that would never, ever give up.